Lush green vegetation, not what you'd normally expect to see in Africa in late February, but this year the rains came early. Rivers, normally bone dry, were in flood, but the news wasn't all good. Soil had been washed away, leaving roads resembling rocky assault courses and making the world's toughest rally an even more daunting proposition. After 2 rounds of the FIA World Rally Championship, Carlos Sainz held a 6-point lead in the Drivers' Series, while Sainz's win in Monte Carlo and his second place in Sweden meant that Toyota also led the Manufacturers' Championship, and so to Africa.
Hopefully we will be in the pace. It is, of course, a little bit of disadvantage to be the first time with the car here when the others has been with the car before, no? But I think we have been testing quite a lot. Toyota was here in December, trying to find out what could be the problems, and seems to be everything okay.
Everything's gone really well during the last 10 days we've had practicing and testing. All we've had to do is like routine maintenance on the car. We've had less punctures than we had last year because Michelin have come up with a better tyre for the event, so there's a really strong possibility to win here.
I hope it goes like 2 years ago when we won Swedish Rally, and then immediately after that this one. It was very good.
Juha, the Safari Rally was your first World Championship win. Does it have an emotional place in your rallying career?
Yeah, that's always the first one. First win is always the one which one you remember with good memories.
It's very easy to retire here, so to have some points would be nice, but to have 10 points would be even nicer for us at the moment.
Round 3 of the series was the first of 5 events outside Europe. Kenya's Safari Rally is based in the capital city, Nairobi, and covers over 1,200 miles during the 3 days. The 4 main competitive sections of Leg 1 were in the hills to the south of the city. But the first section was something new, a spectator stage around Ngong Racecourse on the outskirts of Nairobi. First to start was the championship leader, Carlos Sainz. The heavy rain had been replaced by baking sunshine, and dust would be a hazard throughout the rally. The rain, however, had left deep ruts, and even the short opening stage demanded care. The rally soon moved on to more familiar territory, although Sainz was slowed by suspension problems and was in 5th place after section 3. Normally, the Toyota team rely on the experience of local driver Ian Duncan, but a broken leg left him unable to compete, so Didier Auriol drove the second Corolla. He too would have a frustrating first day. A breakdown was eventually traced to a loose battery lead, but only after 5 minutes were lost. Last year's Safari winner, Colin McRae, needed to repeat that victory after retiring from this year's Swedish rally with electrical failure. McRae and co-driver Nicky Grist were, however, in for a shock on section 2.
Into 6 right. There we got a puncture. Quite a long way to go, isn't there? Yeah, we got 25 k's to go. Okay, Nigel, we have a puncture. We're going to stop and change. 6 right minus over Crescent, 6 left tightens to minus. Rock inside. They have a puncture. Sheer rear. Okay.
Both rear tyres had lost their tread, something which hadn't happened during extensive testing. Over 4 minutes were lost, but worryingly no one knew whether it would happen again. They got through section 3 without problems, but what had happened to destroy those tyres?
The tread had lifted off the tyres. It was very fast. And it wasn't a puncture, it was just a constant high speed, I think, and we had a bit too much camber in the car and overheated the inside of the tyre, and the tread starts to come off, so we had 2 punctures.
How many spares do you carry?
2 spares.
Does that mean you have to back off when the second one goes?
Well, we backed off a bit anyway because it was only 8 k's to the end with the second one, so we drove to the end with a puncture.
Is this a rally, though, where minutes still count?
Yeah, I mean, that dropped about 4 minutes to Tommy, I think, so it's not a disaster. If you drop 4 minutes in a European event, you're out, and that's it. But here it's not such a problem.
Are you worried that the same might happen again on the same long stage this afternoon?
Well, we've altered the car now to stop it happening.
The second Subaru was driven by Piero Liati, whose only previous visit to Kenya had ended with a 5th place. A broken shock absorber near the start of the long 4th section cost around 10 minutes, dropping the Italian to 8th and forcing him to stop on the section to allow the car behind to pass.
Sinistra 3, in destra 4 lunga, in sinistra 4 più lunga.
Harry would like pass, please, 200 metres behind.
100.
Okay.
Sinistra 3 più tieni.
With the time ticking away, those 200 metres seemed to last forever. Liati's frustration was obvious.
Thanks from Ari.
Like Toyota, the Ford team were using a replacement driver, Ari Vatanen, instead of Bruno Thierry, who'd been injured in a bizarre accident during the reconnaissance.
How did you get the drive?
Well, simply like it used to do every now and then. Old good days, telephone rang. I heard Bruno Thierry is injured, which is obviously very sad for him, but luckily he's not badly injured. He will be in shape in a few weeks' time. And in the meantime, I stand in for him. And of course, for me, Africa is like my second home, so every second here, has been a pure pleasure.
Vatanen, who won the Safari in 1983, and his co-driver Fred Gallagher, a 3-times winner, was slowed by electrical problems on Section 2, which lost them around 4 minutes. In 1985, Juha Kankkunen became the first driver to win the Safari at the first attempt. Now Ford's team leader, Kankkunen had few technical worries, but he seemed a little off the pace, running in 6th place for much of the day. Englishman Richard Burns finished second in Africa last year and knew victory was a realistic prospect. He and Scottish co-driver Robert Reid served notice of their intentions by setting the fastest time on the opening stage around Ngong Racecourse. This was Burns' 4th attempt at the Safari and his confidence was sky high. Brake problems, however, would cost him the lead on Section 2. The reigning world champion Tommi Mäkinen won here in 1996 but retired last year. He and Risto Männisen-Mäki were fastest on Section 2 and took over the lead from their teammates. Like Burns, Mäkinen lost his brakes on a section, although the problem didn't affect the positions. The two Mitsubishis dominated day 1, holding the top 2 places over all 6 sections.
Servicing from helicopters is no longer allowed on the Safari Rally, but the machines still play a crucial part. Each of the factory teams uses spotter helicopters, running slightly ahead of the cars to warn the crews of problems unique to this event.
It's an extra set of eyes with about 400 or 500 metres in front of the rally car. There's a lot of hazards out there because they're not closed special stages. They're actually open roads. There's quite a lot of hazards, as in animals, the occasional truck. And that type of thing, dogs and goats running around.
Coming alongside. Underneath.
Keep left over ruts to long fast right. 50. Keep straight over crest, 100 over ruts.
It's just myself in a direct link to the driver and the co-driver, and nobody else interferes with that link.
250 metres, just passing the cows now.
A bit bizarre, but all part of the modern-day high-speed Safari. If conditions were tough for the four-wheel drive championship contenders, they were far worse for the two-wheel drive cars competing for the 2-litre World Cup. SEAT were entered on the event for the first time, and they were the only factory team to make the trip. Harry Rovanperä was 11th overall and second in F2 at the end of the day. The class leader was his teammate, Oriol Gomez, just 13 seconds in front after Rovanperä lost time stuck in some soft sand. Gomez and co-driver Mark Marty were enjoying their first African outing. SEAT weren't having things all their own way, however. The private Volkswagen Golf of Raimund Baumschlager was only 36 seconds behind Rovanperä.
As the cars headed back towards Nairobi, Juha Kankkunen's Ford Escort was 6th. Ari Vatanen in an identical car was 5th, despite setting the second fastest time on the longest section of the day. Carlos Sainz and co-driver Luis Moya were in 4th place, Sainz struggling with stiff power steering for much of the day, cured at the final service area. Colin McRae was now 3rd after an impressive fight back that left other teams barely believing the times he'd achieved. Fastest on the final 4 sections of the day, he'd been right to think that his 4-minute delay hadn't ruined his chances. And with only 3rd place in Monte Carlo to show for his efforts so far this year, he was anxious to repeat last year's Safari victory and start challenging for the world title again. Richard Burns ended the day in second place, the Mitsubishi team changing the gearbox as planned at the end of the leg, but reporting no other mechanical worries. Tommi Mäkinen returned to Nairobi having led since Section 2. Like his teammate, a new gearbox was fitted after Mäkinen reported odd noises from his transmission. Another sprint around Ngong racecourse remained before the crews could afford to relax. For 7th place, Didier Auriol, a moment's lack of concentration resulted in one of the most public and embarrassing incidents of the season so far.
In the last stage, we are nearly to the finish and there's one airplane left. And it's quite a lot of rut, and it's in first gear. And the car stopped in the rut and tried to come on two wheel. And I said, okay, maybe stay and just poof.
At the end of leg 1, Mäkinen's lead over Burns was 36 seconds, with 1st to 6th places covered by 6 minutes 21 seconds. Incidentally, the Safari Rally still times to the nearest second. Not that Mitsubishi were worrying.
Andrew, you've got 1st and 2nd place after the first day. Is that where you'd hope to be?
Well, no, we weren't planning this at all. But, you know, the cars have run very well, and both Richard and Tommy have been comfortable with the pace they've been going at. So, you know, this is what's happened. I think maybe tomorrow it could be difficult for us in the service, but we've just got to cope with that.
What can you do to beat the Mitsubishis?
We would have been beating them if it wasn't for the tyres this morning, so I don't think we need to worry. We just need to keep going at this pace and just be very careful over the rough sections tomorrow.
Day 2's 5 sections took the cars well to the north of Nairobi and down into the searing heat of the Great Rift Valley. Carlos Sainz was the day's first casualty with a high-speed roll on the very first section, the car's bodywork telling the sorry tale. He and Luis Moya lost over 10 minutes in the section and more pressure lay ahead. Only 20 minutes were allowed at the next service area, and with the amount of work the mechanics had to do, time penalties were almost inevitable.
Quite a big roll, fast. It was quite dusty at the beginning of the stage, and missed one left bend in 5th gear. So
9 minutes late, leaving service meant another 1 minute 30 seconds lost. Despite a puncture on the section, Didier Auriol and Denis Giraudet moved up a place as a result of their colleagues' misfortune. A mysterious lack of power later in the morning was traced to the car's sophisticated engine management system shutting down after it overheated.
Seat still led Formula 2, although Oriol Gomez had become a victim of the treacherous conditions. Section 8, the day's second, was where it all went wrong for Gomez. Gomez and Mark Marty were forced to stop in the section to change a broken suspension strut, allowing Harry Rovanperä and Voito Cylinder to move into the lead in F2. In all, around 43 minutes were lost, and the incident dropped the Spaniards from 10th overall to 17th.
Richard Burns was another to run into problems early on leg 2. A slipping clutch delayed him throughout the day, frustrating his attempts to catch his teammate. Tommi Mäkinen, however, had the perfect start to the day, setting the fastest time on the first 2 sections and extending his lead to over 6 minutes. Colin McRae's tyre problems of the previous morning hadn't reappeared. He was catching Burns and snatched second place on section 9 along the knife-edged rim of the Rift Valley. Sainz's roll meant that Ari Vatanen was now 4th, and he was also closing in on Burns. Juha Kankkunen was slowed by punctures, although on this occasion Michelin's Mousse system kept the tyres inflated until the end of the section. It was Piero Liati, though, who set the fastest time on section 9, but he was still languishing in 8th place.
As the rally crisscrossed the equator, the fastest time he'd set on Section 9 meant that Liati's confidence had received a major boost. On the next, he appeared a little overconfident approaching this junction. The overshoot only cost a few seconds, but there was worse to come in the section's final few miles.
Destra 850. Si sta spegnendo?
Si sta spegnendo, sì.
Destra 850. Stai a destra 650. The car is stopping now.
I think it's broken the engine because in the 10 meter before the stop, this stage engine completely stop, and then it's not possible to finish the stage.
Colin McRae, by now in second place and attempting to catch Tommi Mäkinen, was unaware of his teammate's retirement until he was clear of the section. By then, he and Nicky Grist had problems of their own, problems which sounded a little familiar.
300.
Colin from Nigel, got some sort of problem with the engine. The water temperature is fine, but the oil temperature is very high and the engine's cutting out.
5 left plus 30k, jump
Okay,
right.
I understand, but you just need to keep going.
And 6 left over crest and tightens the 5 left.
The car was nursed to the next service area, but one look underneath the Impreza confirmed McRae's worst fears. Boiling oil meant the car was going no further, his second retirement in as many events.
The long faces say it all. Is it over?
Yep, finished. Another one.
Do you know what the final problem was?
No, I don't know yet.
This was the fourth time since the beginning of last year that both Subarus had retired on an event. Over the same period, Collins had his car die under him in more than a third of his starts.
Mäkinen then started the day's final section without the pressure of the charging Scotsman on his tail, and Burns was a distant 5 minutes adrift. So Tommi and Risto Männissen-Mäki could afford to relax a little.
Ylös ja nyppy 100 kiviä. Päällä ylhäällä, niin seisoo sisäkurvissa matatu. 95. Nyppy jatkuu. Joo, se oli siinä. Sammu moottori. Keneltä? Meiltä. Särkymoottori.
About 10 kilometers from the start, just the engine stopped, and I think it's cam belt broke, and that's it.
There was nothing you could do?
No, what you can do, it's nothing to do, it's clear.
Up until our halfway point, none of the top cars had gone out. Suddenly, we've lost 3. Why?
Because this is a safari. You know, I mean, it's unbelievable. This happens year after year after year. 20 years ago, when I was doing it, it was happening like this. You know, the last day is the day that counts, and the cars that are in good condition on the last day win the rally. The rest just fall apart.
With those words ringing in his ears, Richard Burns returned to Nairobi as the rally leader. His first victory on a World Championship event beckoned, but without knowing what had happened to Mäkinen, would the same happen to him? The amazing string of retirements had left Harry Rovanperä in 6th place overall, but SEAT were about to lose Oriol Gomez. He went outside the time limit and wasn't allowed to start the final day. Carlos Sainz had recovered from his role to set the fastest time on the day's last section. He would begin leg 3 in 5th place. Fourth were Juha Kankkunen and Juha Repo. Broken suspension and yet another puncture rounded off a frustrating day for the Finns. Kankkunen's problems meant that Didier Auriol was now in 3rd place, thanks also to the retirements of McRae and Mäkinen. He was perfectly placed should the pair ahead run into trouble on the last day. One of the surprises of the rally, though, was Ari Vatanen. His 2nd place was ample proof that experience still counts on the safari. His first attempt at the rally was 21 years ago. After After all the dramas, there were still only 12 minutes covering the top 5 survivors, with Formula 2 leader Rovanperä a full hour and 10 minutes further back. Arriving at the final service area of the day, Burns' mechanics had plenty to do. The slipping clutch could finally be changed and the technicians had a chance to check the engine. Despite the worry of not knowing exactly what had caused Tommy's cam belt to break, Richard was a happy man.
Richard, from second to third to second to first in just a few stages. Can you keep up?
Well, that's my kind of day, yeah. I hope so. I don't know. I don't know what times the Fords have done in the last section, but they were about 6 minutes behind. That was good enough for Colin last year to stay in front of me on the last day, so I can only hope we have no problems.
Burns set off into the Kenyan dawn. The third leg was virtually identical to the first. 4 bush sections with a final visit to the racecourse to finish off. Burns was fastest on the first of those sections, but at a cost. He hit a rock, damaging the oil cooler, and the oil pressure started to fluctuate. Vatanen was quickest on the next section, a full minute faster than Burns. The Finns sensed the Englishman had a problem and turned up the pressure. Kankkunen, meanwhile, knew that he had to catch Oriol. If he could move up to third, the team would order Vatanen to swap places and finish behind him. Section 13, the day's second, allowed him to do just that. Oriol started the section over 1 minute and 20 seconds ahead, but then disaster struck. Punctures forced Oriol and Giraudet to stop and change the wheel. While they were doing so, Kankkunen squeezed past, turning that 1 minute 20 deficit into a 1 minute advantage. To make matters worse, they could only change one puncture. Another would slow them still further. Sainz then pulled up at almost exactly the same place as Oriol, another puncture. More wheel-changing practice for a Toyota driver, but worse lay ahead. Pulling away from the stop, little did Sainz and Moya realise that their rally would soon be over.
Tienes que pararte un poco para un lado porque se puede venir a la otra. We break a rim, we break a rim. Okay. Dale un poco más para adelante. Ian is not the wheel, eh? We broke the complete damper, rear right damper, and we are 66 kilometers to the end. Try to speak with Agua and see what we can do.
Less than 125 miles from the rally finish, a 4th championship contender was forced to retire. The car had limped on for a while, but the suspension damage was too great.
In Formula 2, the Volkswagen Golf of Raimund Baumschlager would finish second in the category and 6th overall, giving his team, Sawfish Racing, the lead in the FIA Teams Cup. But Seat's amazing run continued. Harry Rovanperä finished 5th overall and won F2 by over 14 minutes. A brilliant performance considering his and the team's lack of previous experience here. It was also a fitting end to his partnership with Voito Cylinder, whose last rally this was before retiring. There were some delighted faces at the final service area.
Well, it was hard to stay on the rally. To come to 5th place has been a question of mixture of other things that has happened in the rally, but obviously we have to be in this place in order to be 5th. And it was hard, but the car we have prepared quite good, and the driver is fantastic, so we are here.
How hard? Very hard. Very hard. First time here, and this is very difficult for me, and the team is first time here, but everything is working well.
Oriol brought his Toyota back to Nairobi in 4th place, those punctures denying the Frenchman a podium finish. As widely predicted, Ford issued team orders and Vatanen incurred a 6-minute road penalty to drop from 2nd to 3rd. The team kept intact its 100% finishing record, with Kankkunen and Repo scoring 2 extra championship points with their engineered 2nd place. But despite his oil pressure scare, Richard Burns held on to win, even setting the fastest time on the final section, becoming the first Englishman ever to win an overseas round of the World Rally Championship. Kankkunen scored his third podium finish in as many events, and there were 2 Formula 2 cars in the top 6, albeit 2 hours behind the top 4.
After 3 rounds, Sainz and Kankkunen share the lead in the Drivers' Series, while Burns is third ahead of Mäkinen. No points for McRae in Africa means he slips to joint 5th place. Mitsubishi now have a 1-point lead over Ford in the championship for manufacturers. Toyota are third, while Subaru are left licking their wounds in 4th place. The relief on Richard Burns' face was clear. This is a moment he'll always treasure. Andrew Cowan's faith in his young driver has been rewarded, and the young Englishman had a smile on his face that told it all.
Richard, you've been waiting a long, long, long time for this. Congratulations.
Thank you.
I can ask you now confidently, how do you feel?
I feel exactly how I look. I feel fantastic. I'm just so happy.
How hard was this morning knowing that victory was so far yet so near?
It was horrible. All day today was horrible. I've been driving really carefully, but it doesn't matter now. It's a great feeling. It's absolutely fantastic feeling.
We had enough of a lead that we could pace ourselves a little bit, but we had a problem on the first section, which was a bit hard in the mouth, and okay, took some penalties out of service getting that fixed, but no, we just tried to keep calm, and we knew that we could let Ari take a minute a section, and there wasn't going to be a problem.
How long have you been rallying?
Since I was 17, 10 years.
Do you ever dream that today would happen?
Well, I don't know. I've just been taking everything as it comes and trying to enjoy it, and if this is what enjoying it's about, then I'm quite happy with that.
The championship returns to Europe for round 4, the Rally of Portugal, where the thick dust and huge crowds are only 2 of the hazards. Both Subarus retired there last year, and the team can't afford a repeat of that nightmare. But while Subaru's engineers look long and hard at their engine problems, the Mitsubishi team has a new star of Africa. The first 3 rounds of the World Rally Championship have been won by 3 different drivers. 1998 already looks like being a vintage year.
Looking ahead, the rally in Portugal starts